Who would have thought that the greatest inventor of the 20th century, Thomas Edison, was trying to get in touch with spirits from the other world? It may sound crazy, but watch this video to the end and you will learn about Thomas Edison's incredible experiment and what it led to. What awaits us beyond the border of the last breath? This question has plagued humanity since its inception. Looking at the starless sky, awe of the unknown, attempts to find meaning in the finiteness of existence. All this forms a deep foundation for the endless search for answers. Life after death is a mystery that has worried philosophers, scientists, and mystics for thousands of years. Ancient thinkers made guesses, religions promised answers, but no truth ever became final. History knows many great minds whose imagination and desire for knowledge extended beyond time. Leonardo da Vinci studied anatomy with a tenacity bordering on obsession in an attempt to understand the nature of human life. Isaac Newton explored alchemy and the occult sciences, balancing on the edge between physics and metaphysics. But only a few have invented enough courage to challenge the natural order of things, openly asking the question, is it possible to look beyond death? One of these people was Thomas Edison, whose name is associated with the invention of the incandescent lamp, the phonograph, and many other devices that changed the face of the world. But apart from his technical genius, Edison was a man who was not afraid to dream the impossible. And one of his most amazing dreams was to communicate with the souls of the dead. Yes, the great creator of technology that connected people across distances was fascinated by the idea of connecting with those who crossed the line between life and death. For Edison, this was not just a whim or a desire for mysticism. It was a challenge that he saw as a new frontier of science, using technology to penetrate the very mystery of existence. The story of Thomas Edison, a man whose name embodies progress, but whose interests stretched into the unknown, deserves attention. His life and work are not only an engineering triumph, but also a reminder that even the most rational minds can be carried away by questions that have yet to be solved. Thomas Edison, an engineer with a boundless thirst for innovation, always looked at the world through the prism of logic and rationality. It seems all the more surprising that he became interested in a topic that was far beyond the generally accepted science of his time. The connection with spirits, an idea that sounded more like an element of Victorian mysticism than the field of interest of one of the most pragmatic minds of his time, became an object of deep research passion for Edison. In a 1920 interview, Edison stated something that shocked even his closest associates. He talked about the possibility of telephone contact with spirits. Edison assumed that the souls of the dead, if they continue to exist, possess some form of energy or subtle matter that can be fixed with a suitable device. His faith was based on the belief that the laws of physics are universal and should apply to all aspects of existence, even those that are beyond human experience. It is important to understand that Edison's fascination with spiritualism was not motivated by a simple thirst for sensation or a desire to join the ranks of mystics like the mediums who filled the halls of the Victorian era. His approach was characterized by absolute practicality. Edison was convinced that the progress of science would inevitably lead to the discovery of those mysteries that people had considered unattainable for centuries. He believed that life after death, if it exists, can be explored in the same way that man once mastered electricity or the nature of sound. Edison never treated spiritualism with the irrationality that was characteristic of mediums or religious mystics. He remained an engineer who stood firmly on the basis of experiment and measurements. His interest in the spirit phone, as this invention is sometimes called, was motivated not only by personal curiosity, but also by a desire to understand the fundamental laws of the universe. Even against the background of the time when Victorian spiritualism was at the peak of popularity, Edison's idea was surprising. Many of his contemporaries, including close colleagues, considered this idea too strange for a man with such a rational mind. However, the inventor himself saw this work as a continuation of his main goals, to help humanity overcome barriers. If the telephone, radio, and phonograph connected people at a distance, then why not try to connect the world of the living with the world of the dead? Edison believed that technological progress should not only solve everyday problems, but also help humanity to push the boundaries of knowledge. His fascination with exploring the afterlife was an example of his tendency to look beyond the obvious, to seek answers to questions that no one else had dared to ask. For Edison, spiritualism was not so much a faith as an exploration. He was looking for ways to apply his engineering genius to solving the most mysterious phenomena. His attempts to create a device for communicating with spirits were not just dreams. It was a continuation of his desire to use science to explain the world around him. This approach emphasized a unique facet of his personality, a combination of absolute pragmatism with a willingness to challenge the very concept of the impossible. At the beginning of the 20th century, when science was making its greatest breakthroughs, Thomas Edison dreamed of a device that could turn mankind's idea of the limits of existence upside down. This mysterious project, later known as the spirit telephone, was an attempt to create a device for communicating with the world of the dead. The idea, both intriguing and frightening, was surprisingly logical for a mind accustomed to solving problems with engineering precision. Edison did not see spirits as intangible entities. He assumed that if souls really existed, then they must be a form of energy. This approach was based on his deep respect for the laws of physics, which he considered universal. Energy, as you know, does not disappear without a trace. It transforms. This means that if a person dies, this energy could continue to exist in some other form, perhaps even interact with the material world. Edison suggested that a spirit telephone could capture this energy by converting it into audio or visual signals. According to his idea, the device was supposed to be equipped with highly sensitive sensors capable of detecting the smallest fluctuations in the environment that could come from souls. If our personalities survive after death, he wrote, it must be only because they persist as physical entities or forces. The device, as Edison believed, was supposed to work on the principle of recording and reproducing signals, similar to the phonograph, which he had previously invented. Only in this case would it be tuned to frequencies inaccessible to human hearing. Edison planned that the phone would be able to capture what he called spiritual vibrations, turning them into sounds that could be reproduced and heard. However, no drawings or technical descriptions of the spirit phone were found. Scientists and historians can only wonder why Edison hid his secret achievements. This mystery gave rise to many rumors, including theories that the device could have been created, but the results of the experiments were too frightening or inexplicable to make public. Edison did not consider his work to be mystical. On the contrary, he was looking for scientific confirmation of phenomena that others called supernatural. For him, the spirit phone was just another device to expand the boundaries of knowledge. It was not an act of faith, but an act of exploration, an attempt to face the biggest of the unexplored questions. The mystery of the spiritualistic telephone continues to excite minds. Edison himself, being a man who loved to create intrigue, mentioned the device several times in his interviews, but always with a hint that the work was far from over. Whether the project died with Edison or whether its development was secretly continued is an unanswered question. The fact remains that the idea of using technology to communicate with the afterlife was revolutionary. Even if the device never came to life, the very fact of its concept leaves a mark that makes you think about what is possible at the intersection of science and the unknown. After initial statements about the possibility of communication with the dead, Edison gradually began to avoid the topic of the spiritualistic telephone in his public speeches. He stopped giving interviews about this project and seems to have completely gone into working on more traditional technologies. But the silence, instead of closing the issue as usual, gave rise to even more rumors. Many of his contemporaries believed that Edison could achieve certain results, but either could not explain them scientifically or feared the consequences of their publication. Some claimed that he continued his experiments in secret, possibly using previously unknown technologies. Others saw his silence as a sign of disappointment. A man accustomed to success did not want to publicly admit failure. Despite the lack of evidence and results, Edison maintained faith in the possibility of contact with the afterlife until the end of his life. He continued to claim that science would one day be able to explain what today seems to be mysticism. For him, it was not just a personal interest, but a challenge, a boundary that he dreamed of crossing but perhaps did not have time. This belief has inspired many researchers and enthusiasts. Even after his death, there were rumors that Edison allegedly left encrypted recordings in which he described his experiments and offered to continue what he had started. However, these rumors have never been officially confirmed. Thomas Edison's name has remained in history as a symbol of progress and inventive genius. His phonograph, electric light bulb, and kinetoscope changed the course of history, paving the way to the modern world. But apart from these great achievements lies a mysterious page of his life, the search for contact with the afterlife. Although his spirit phone never became a reality, the very idea that science can bring us closer to understanding life after death has remained a fascinating legacy. Edison was not only an engineer, but also a philosopher, a man who saw science as a way to expand the horizons of human knowledge. His experiments with electricity and sound were not just technical achievements, but an attempt to understand the fundamental laws of the universe. For him, the spiritualistic phone became a natural continuation of this path. If energy is truly immortal, as the laws of physics claim, then why not assume that a human being transformed into another form can be fixed? This idea, though not proven, still excites the imagination. Many scientists, inspired by Edison's ideas, continue to explore the boundaries of consciousness, energy, and its possible transformation after death. There may be no evidence, but the very question itself makes us think about how little we know about the nature of life. Edison's greatness lies not only in his achievements, but also in his willingness to ask uncomfortable questions. His ideas are at the intersection of science and mysticism, in a space where logic and faith enter into a complex dialogue. He was not afraid to face the unknown and propose bold hypotheses that might seem ridiculous to his contemporaries. Edison was not a mystic in the traditional sense, but his work showed that science is not only practical inventions, but also an opportunity to touch the deepest mysteries of existence. His approach inspires those who see science not just as a tool for improving life, but also as the key to the most fundamental questions of existence. Edison's legacy is not only the inventions that we use every day, but also the questions he posed to humanity. We may still be far from answering the question of whether there is life after death, but the very fact that this question is being considered through the lens of science is an important step. Edison showed that dreams of the unknown can become a driving force for discoveries that once seemed impossible. And although today we cannot prove the existence of an afterlife or hear the voices of the dead, this does not mean that one day humanity will not take this step. Perhaps the technologies of the future will allow us to solve the mystery of death and understand where the energy that we call the soul goes. Thomas Edison remained in history as a man who challenged the limits of what is possible. His works, even if unfinished, inspire us to find answers to questions that seem too bold or too complicated. His belief in science as a universal tool of knowledge suggests that the future may be more amazing than we can imagine. And who knows, maybe someday the mystery of life and death will be solved. Then, looking back, we will understand that Edison, with his strange ideas and fearless thirst for knowledge, was one of those who first saw the power of bold dreams. Dear friends, thank you for watching my video to the end. If you liked it, please like it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It's very important. Thank you, and have a nice day.